Welcome to another episode of Unbreakable Mompreneurs. Today I have Patti Handy, and she is a formal financial advisor turned financial coach. So, Patti, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Thank you, Charisse. Great to be here. Yes, as you mentioned, I was a former financial advisor. Prior to that, I was a mortgage advisor. And I left my firm in April of last year, 2023, to go out on my own and do financial coaching, which is different than being a financial advisor. Our services actually complement each other. And yeah, it's really making a bigger impact and just able to reach more women. And I love it.
That's great. So, can you expand a little bit on how it's different than
Sure.
being?
So yeah, it's a very common question. So as a financial advisor, as a firm that I work for, we took in the client's money and we held their funds, or a custodian held the funds, and we managed the funds. We invested it. We talked about tax strategies. We implemented, various investing strategies, and we were the ones that were responsible for that management of those funds. As a financial coach, I don't take in funds. I don't take anyone's money. I don't manage any funds. I am more an educator and teacher, and I can either teach you how to invest your own funds, or I can teach you the questions to ask an advisor and become more confident. So we go through everything from understanding investing basics and going through the definition of all these fancy lingo things that we hear, understanding how to jump onto a Fidelity or Vanguard and look at the funds and analyze them yourself, to budgets, to paying down debts, to creating a good budget in itself, separate from just trying to manage the investments, and then rebuilding credit if you need. I also do mortgages as well. So I help you if you are looking at buying a house, if you want to understand what's involved with, the lending side of the world. How do you qualify for a loan?
Mhm.
What do the lenders look for? All that kind of good stuff. So it's much more education and coaching. And I do a lot of life coaching in that as well. I'm a certified executive and life coach. So oftentimes with clients, we have conversations where we don't talk about money at all. And we're just talking about issues that are happening in their life that they're having, some challenges with, and we, unpack it and work through those things. So that's primarily the difference. And funny enough, there's a lot of financial advisors who are bringing in financial coaches and life coaches to help their clients, because their role really isn't to do what I just shared. Their
Mhm.
role is to do the proactive investing, and it's not the best use of their time to do what I just spoke of. So as I mentioned, it's a nice complement to each other.
It's interesting, because I just got off a call literally right before this one with my financial advisor. It's that 6-month annual thing. And it's interesting that I said, okay, what else can I do? He goes, I wouldn't change a thing. Everything's looking great. Here's how much. And this was right after I said, hey, there's someone else that said he can do better with my money, and I wouldn't change a thing. Everything's fine. So it's just interesting that people's perspectives, and like I'm looking for, maybe that's what as an educator, tell me what I should do differently with my money. And it was a 15-minute call,
Oh,
it turned
interesting.
out to be an hour. So I was surprised by that. So what do you say to women who they're not sure? Like, I've been investing since I was in 7th grade, right? But I don't know what I'm doing. I'm expecting and hoping somebody else will take that lead. And so what do you say to those type of women in my shoes?
Yeah, what's interesting is that I've run across a lot of women who, when they talk about investing or money, they just shut down because it's overwhelming. There's a lot of fear around it. There's a lot of embarrassment. Husbands took care of it, and if a husband passed or they've gone through a divorce, now
Mhm.
it's on them. And it's the very common theme that I hear. And a lot of times they're not confident and comfortable enough in having those conversations with. And I'm not saying that that's you. You
Right,
obviously
right.
done it for a very long time. But for those that are not as comfortable with it, they just like, okay, it's fine, okay, good, and not question like, well, why is it good? Explain to me what are you doing that's making it good? Are we diversified? How are we diversified?
Mhm.
I'm looking at potentially buying a home in 2 years. Do I have enough money sitting in a liquid account that I can do that? I'm funding a wedding coming up in 5 years. Is that something that I need to change the diversification, the asset allocation? Is there anything that we can do tax strategy wise? Should we do some Roth conversions, which is taking money out of a Roth and converting it to an IRA and converting it to a Roth, which is going from tax deferred to tax free. Is there anything I can do to save taxes? Can we talk to my CPA and do a joint call and look at ways that we can explore tax strategies that, can potentially save me some money? And just have them explain to you, be okay and be comfortable, explain this to me and asking that question without thinking that, oh, I shouldn't ask this, I should know this, I don't want to look stupid, I don't want to look, like I don't understand. It's totally okay to ask these questions. And a lot of times I'll say, explain this to me like I'm a fourth grader. Okay, just simplify this for me because I don't understand this, especially when it comes to the different annuities that some advisors, address, some of the more complex insurance policies, like a universal policy or a whole life. It's different than a term.
Right.
And there's so many moving parts to those things. So it's like, okay, help me understand this. And I'm 12.
Yeah.
So talk to me like that.
And I think that is so important because especially if you're an entrepreneur and so you don't have that retirement, you have to make sure that you're being proactive with it. It's sad to me. I think right before I went through my divorce, I had a lady come over. And so this was 15 years ago. I was younger. And she put all of my retirement stuff that I gave her into an annuity. And then,
Ugh.
I know. And so I had no
Ugh.
idea at the time. And to this day, I have no, like, if I were to see her, I'd probably just not be able to say anything because I'm so angry that she did that. And I know it's because, first of all, that's all she did. Second of all, she made a whole lot of money on me, probably more than I've made in the last 15 years. And so, it's life insurance policies or it's whatever. It's making sure that you ask questions and talk to different people because one person, like the one I just talked to, I don't think he's very proactive and I was pretty disappointed. So I'm obviously not going to keep my money there. And so I think that, you talk about 3 steps as a divorced person who I told you just went through that mistake. What are 3 steps that a divorced woman should do with her money that you'd recommend?
Yeah, first and foremost, I would say give yourself some grace and be okay with not knowing everything and not understanding everything. I think it's important to realize that we were not taught this in school,
Right.
and if we weren't taught at home, then where else are we going to learn this? So it's okay not to know, and just be okay with that reality. I would also then pull all of your statements, all of the investment accounts, all of your bank checking, all of your assets, and take a look at what it is that you have, whether it's an insurance, annuity, invest in the markets, if it's a, IRAs, whatever, 401ks, how it's diversified, and look at, okay, I'm now looking at these assets. I see that they're allocated. I need to understand why they're allocated. If you're working with the financial advisor, again, go back to that advisor and say, why am I 80% in the market and 20% in bonds?
Right.
What's the theory behind that? Help me
Mhm.
understand what you're doing and why you're doing this.
Sure.
It's okay to, again, question. And then just make sure that you have everything else as far as your estate plan in place. I'm a big believer that you have to have an estate plan in place, get a
Mhm.
living trust in place, especially if you are divorced and you have children, you want to protect the kids. You want to make sure that your ex-husband doesn't get, assets that you don't want to go to them. Or him or her, you got to make sure that your kids are safe and protected. So spend the money and get a good estate planning attorney and get that in place. And if you are in a place, I always say this, if you are in a place where you are recently divorced, or your spouse recently passed and you are dealing with the trauma and the emotions that are part of that journey, and I went through a divorce, and I understand the
Mhm.
pain that goes along with that and the emotional roller coaster, please don't make any financial decisions when you're in that state. You'll not make a good decision when you're emotionally distraught. And
Mhm.
if somebody is trying to sell you something, especially an insurance policy or an annuity, run, because that's not the time or the place to try to invest in something that is so complicated. There's no way you're going to get your head around all the nuances,
Mhm.
ask the right question. You just can't. So wait, 6 months, a year, whatever it is that you have. You've kind of come out of the darkness and you're thinking straight and you're able to now look at this, and then ask, several people. Don't just go with one advisor's opinion. I would speak to a couple advisors, a coach, people that you trust, your CPA, an attorney,
Mhm.
that you like and trust, and collect the data, you know, patiently and do your homework. But don't ever make any big decisions financially when you're in that emotionally, charged state.
I agree with that. And I think, in addition, I think that's your time to do some homework, do some research. Like you said, talk to various different people.
Mhm.
Because if you're an entrepreneur, obviously it's going to be different. And if you have if you have a W-2 job and you're doing your side hustle, that's great. But my husband, when he was working at a company, we bought at the beginning of the year, we bought that lawyer thing. I don't even know what it's called, but it cost us a couple $100. And so we went and had all of our wills done. We had our living trust done. We had all that stuff done. It was free because we paid for that up front, right? And then we canceled it the next year. And so we just worked it out with this attorney where every year it's $100 and he updates it for us if we need it. So I think that making sure that you do your due diligence and making sure that you are aware of the resources that are out there are fantastic.
Yes, yes. And be careful who you get that from. There's a lot of good information online and there's a lot of bad information online. So don't look at everything as necessarily truth online. Again, there's a lot of great information. There's a wonderful podcast. There's a lot of great YouTube channels. But find one that you know is reputable and get that. You have a little visitor.
Yeah, sorry.
And
It's
that's
just
okay. No worries. And yeah, get that homework done. Take your time and just, give yourself that opportunity to really become more confident. And so when you get involved with an advisor, if you go that route, you again know the questions to ask. And when they're starting to discuss different products or services, you then know what to ask and question, like, why are you doing this? Tell me why.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind your decision?
Yeah. Nope. I think that's great. I think that it's great that you, not that I'm, that you switched positions or switched careers, but I don't think people know very much. And I don't think that they want to pay for it. And yet, if you were to do kind of a cost analysis, right? How much money you're losing or could have lost versus had I just invested in someone like you to say, tell me what to do. What do you recommend? How do I do this? I think I would have saved a lot more money.
Oh, there's no question. And yes, I 100% agree. Not only do I, will have to be careful, what I say here, but I can't guarantee I'm going to save money or
Right.
anything. But yes, the learning curve will be completely encapsulated, shortened to a much shorter time frame, which is saving money because time is money if you do a bad decision. I had one prospect come to me when I was a financial advisor. And she had like $500,000 sitting in a checking account because she was just so afraid to do anything with it.
Right.
And, she's earning, 0.01% on this thing, and it was sitting there for years. And the reality is that, the inflation, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%, what it was last year, she's losing a ton of money to inflation. So in that case, if we just put that money into a money market account at the time, earning like 5%, that would have been, if you do the dollars, the savings, it would have been huge. So it would have been, 10 times what I charge. And it would have been a very simple, very safe transition for her to go to a checking to a money market account. But it's things like that yes, it's education. And as a coach, I can't tell them, I can't advise, I cannot say, okay, put this money into a S&P 500 index fund, but I can say, here's what the S&P 500 index fund is, and this is why it's a great fund. You need to decide whether that's a fit for you. But I can say that, this is something that here's what we know about it. Here's the expense ratios, here's the performance. I teach them how to learn and look at all that stuff. And then they decide on their own that, yes, this is a good move for me. But yeah, we go over like, okay, well, if you're gonna need the money in, 3 years, that should not be in the market. You need to have that somewhere safe. So we go through all that education piece, which is again, and it's just very empowering, and it just helps with that confidence, which, at the end of the day, it just brings peace of mind when you know that you have some security and safety and, some of the decisions that you're making.
Do you find that generations, it's different for each generation, because you do have an older generation where they put any money, they put it under their bed, right? You have others that they put all their money in the bank, and then you have others that they don't, it's all in these online bank account things, or they're using cryptocurrency type thing. So do you see a difference in generations and how people are spending their money?
Oh yeah, for sure. So yes, if you're 50, 60, 70 years old, you have that mindset of, take the nice conservative mutual fund, index fund, just that slow row, which is really the most effective way to go and grow over time. And then if you're in 20s, 30s, you have decades, if it's investment accounts, if you're looking at 401k in your company or you're doing an outside retirement account, you do have decades to be in the market and you can be more aggressive. You do have the ability to be fully invested in the market and not have anything in bonds per se, if you don't need that cash. Again, this is all something that we've looked at in terms of, analysis, but yeah, surprisingly and very, happily, the younger generations are really interested in learning how to manage the money. They want to understand this. They're quicker to do a RoboCop. I call it RoboCop, a robo-advisor, than the older generation. I think, the 60, 70-year-olds, they're not into the robo-advisor. They want to go to a person and talk to them and have a conversation. And the Fidelities, Vanguard, Schwabs of the world, they all do that. You can talk to a live person. But yes, there's definitely there's definitely some differences. And I've also run into some older folks who love crypto. And they're like, okay, I've got enough money to play with and I'm going to risk it. And I know I'm potentially going to lose it. I'm not going to put a lot in, but I'll play. So I've seen some of that too.
Okay. So 3 things that you would recommend somebody who's getting started, what should they do?
Well, again, it's looking at all your statements, understanding what your asset allocation is, and understanding, what it is that you're invested in, and does it make sense how you are allocated based on what you need, in terms of access to those funds, and is it diversified properly? I would also, again, do a living trust and get your estate plan in place. And then the first thing, as I mentioned before, is just give yourself some grace and just give yourself time to heal if you're going through, the emotional onset of a divorce or losing a spouse. Don't make any decisions based on, somebody trying to sell you something quickly. You need to wait and heal that piece.
I like that. So somebody who wants, they're graduating high school right now and they don't really want to go off to college, they want to be an entrepreneur. How would you recommend what would they do in terms of their money?
Well, there's going to be some, depending upon what they do, there's going to be, a lot of potential expenses to be had when you're starting a business. If you're living at home and you don't have any expenses, that certainly helps as far as overhead goes. So if you're fresh out of high school and you have housing and food and everything covered, you can afford to be a little bit more of a risk taker because you don't have the possibility of losing your home. And I always say, investing in yourself is one of the best things you can do. So find a coach, find a mentor, whatever industry that you're getting into as far as your business, find somebody who's done it before you and done it very well and learn from them. They can, shortcut your learning curve and save you oodles of time and oodles of money over the long run. And a good coach is well worth the investment. And then I would just make sure that as an entrepreneur, you take advantage of funding your retirement accounts. It's up to you to do that. Whether you set up a SEP IRA or you do, a Roth, talk to your accountant and determine which one makes sense based on how much you're making, how long, you're going to touch that. You need to have, cash sitting in the bank to run the business. So you've got to keep some of that, some of that liquid. Today I like the high yield savings accounts or the money market accounts for those very liquid assets. Don't let it sit in a checking account or a regular savings account because you're earning virtually nothing. So go online and search out the high yield savings accounts and the money market accounts. And they, again, the Vanguards of the world, the Fidelities, the Schwabs, they have a lot of great options. And there are some online options too for high yield savings accounts. So I would explore that as well. But work with your CPA to know what's the most advantageous given your tax situation and your income. And
Mhm.
because it's going to be so different based on the business, I can't really specify like, oh, you should, do this, because if they're not earning any money
Mhm.
and they're just launching, and it could be 2 years before they earn money, their path is going to be different than somebody who's generating money, out of the gate.
Mhm.
But definitely set yourself up to protect your company with liquid assets, as well as being mindful of, okay, start with that retirement account.
Mhm. No, that's good. I appreciate that. So if somebody wanted to find you, which they should, they find you.
The best place to start is my website. It's just my name. It's pattyhandy.com. It's PATTIHANDY.com. On the homepage, there is a free download, a free ebook that I wrote. It's Women Soaring Solo.
Mm.
And it's a book that I wrote. There's financial topics as well as ways to just deal with, loss and getting back to life. And there's about a 35-minute training there that's that's free as well, that they can watch. And I do offer a complimentary discovery call. So if you've got questions, you want to talk to me, just go to my contact page and my calendar's there, and they can book a call with me.
Oh,
And
that's
there's no charge for that.
highly, highly recommend that. I think that we're just not taught that in high school, or in any type of school. I think there's
Yeah.
so many things that I think it should be, which we won't get on that bandwagon right now, that is
Yeah.
seriously lacking. And because of that, I think we get set up for failure, when we.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's a train I've been on for decades. Yeah, I've actually gone to schools. I've done some speaking at schools, and yeah, that should be in the core curriculum.
Yeah.
Financial literacy and various other life skills.
Mhm.
It's like, when was the last time we worried about a geometry? When did we learn? Unless you went into architecture or something when you use it, it's like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, everything's important, but there's so many life skills that are so much more applicable today.
Well, and I think now more than ever, you mentioned mentoring. That is really the way to go. But I think
Mhm.
word of caution, because I've paid for many a mentors, that you have to make sure they've been doing it for a while and that they're experienced and successful at it. Because if they, learned, they got their license and now I'm going to teach you, that is just, you're doing a huge disservice. So making sure you do your homework and you're finding somebody who's experienced like you are, so.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, definitely do your homework on that individual for sure. I mean, I've invested in lots of coaches over the years. Some were a complete bust, and I'm
Yep.
like, oh man.
Mhm.
And some were just, well worth their money. Like I said, for the most part, coaches can really shortcut your learning curve, which can put you on a different path to success.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I really appreciate your time and coming on. Education about finances is something that's crucial. So thank
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
you. If you are looking to figure out what you're supposed to do with your money and you're not quite sure, Patty Handy has some very handy ideas on what she needs to do. So give her a call and book that free call. You're not out anything except for more education. Have a great day.